Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite books and maybe the book that has helped me the most in building my day-to-day life so far, which is Atomichabits by James Clear. Base of this book is explained right in the cover page. It's tiny changes and remarkable results. The foundation of this book is centered around making small daily improvements. James Clear explains how remarkable results are achieved through consistent and incremental progress. Well, to put it in a more fun way, it's about getting 1% better every day, which over time will lead you to experience significant growth in yourself. So imagine this, you get 1% better every single day for an entire year. Even though the improvement is as tiny as 1%, the compounding effect over time will give you astonishing results. So if we talk numbers, by the end of the year, you would approximately be 37 times better than when you started. Pretty cool, right? But on the other hand, if you get 1% worse every single day for an entire year, it'll have the same compounding effect, but on the negative side. So you will almost reach what they call the rock bottom. In this book, James Clear introduces a 4-step framework which is called the habit cheat sheet, which you can use either to create new good habits or to break existing bad ones. But the 4 steps of this framework, or the 4 laws of habit creation, are cue, craving, response, and reward. So in this video, I thought of walking you guys through these 4 steps and tell you guys how I applied it into my day-to-day life so you guys can too. So before jumping into the whole content of the habit cheat sheet, let's quickly get a briefing of what these 4 steps are. First one is the cue. The cue is the trigger that prompts your brain to initiate the habit. It can be a specific time, a specific location, or a specific emotional state, or even a specific object or a person that prompts you to perform a habit. Number 2 is the craving. The craving is the desire or the motivation that drives you to act on the habit. It's sort of like an emotional or psychological pull that's associated with the expected reward. And number 3 is the response. The response is the behavior or the action that you perform as a response to the cue and the craving. It could either be a simple action or a series of actions. And finally, number 4 is the reward. The reward is the positive outcome or the benefit that reinforced the habit in the first place and makes it more likely to be repeated. The reward is what provides a sense of satisfaction and pleasure when performing a habit. Now that we know what the 4 steps are, let's see how we can optimize them to create good new habits and to break the existing bad ones. Your habits change according to the cues that are in front of you. In this book, James Clear explains that most of our day-to-day activities are shaped not by purposeful drive or choice, but by the most obvious option. So if you want to make a new habit a big part of your life, you have to make the cue for that habit an obvious option in the environment. So the first thing you gotta do to establish a new habit in your life is to create the environment for it. In this book, it's explained using an example of an experiment done in order to increase the water intake of a group of humans. In this experiment, what they did is they reduced the places that you could get soda and increased the places that you could get more water from. So whenever a person shows up at a place and they're thirsty, the first thing they'd see is a water bottle. So when they get the cue that there's water there, without hesitation, they reach for that. So by this experiment, they achieved to conclude that the more obvious that the cue is in the environment, the more chance that the habit will actually take place. For an example, let's say that you want to read more before you go to bed each night. So what you can do to make the cue obvious is, every day when you wake up and make your bed, remember to place a book on your pillow. So every night when you go to bed, you'd find the book right on your pillow, and the chances are you'll end up reading it at least for a while. So I bought a bottle of these powdered greens, and for the first couple of days, it sat behind the doors of the cupboard, and when I went to the kitchen every morning, it was really easy to miss it since there was no obvious cue. So what I did is I took it out of the cupboard and placed it right on the counter, right next to a glass. So now, every time I walk into the kitchen, the first thing I see is a bottle of green juice right there on the counter, which actually leads me to drink it every morning, even though I don't enjoy it much. Now, to break a bad habit that you already have, you can easily use the inverse of this make it obvious law. which in the book it's called Make It Invisible, which basically means that the less you notice the cue, the less you will act on the habit itself. But it's pretty obvious that it's harder to maintain a zen attitude in a world full of interruptions. For an example, I wanted to stop checking my phone every 2 minutes when I'm working. So what I did is, when I'm about to start work, except for leaving it right next to me on the table, I just put it in a drawer and close it. Or I just leave it in another room. So that way, the cue to using the phone every 2 minutes is presented very less, which means you would not be tempted to use the phone as much as you would have earlier. So that's how you can use the first law of the habit cheat sheet to make good new habits and to break bad ones. As it's explained in this book, habits are a dopamine-driven feedback loop, meaning that the dopamine release in our brains is hardwired to the 4 steps that we talked about. And something that James Clear exaggerates in this book is that dopamine release is not only occurred when we get the reward. Dopamine is released in our brains when we are expecting the reward. That means when we are craving the reward. So before taking action, when we get the craving, dopamine is released in our brains. That's when the law number 2 comes into play when creating new habits. We have to make our habits attractive if we want them to stick. One of the best ways to make a habit attractive is something that's mentioned in the book as temptation bundling. So how temptation bundling works is you link something you want to do with something you have to do. So something you want to do is the new habit that you want to create, and something you have to do is something that happens in your day-to-day life. So for an example, I wanted to make a habit out of reading more books. What I did is I linked it with my daily commute. So now whenever I have to travel somewhere in public transport, which is the thing I have to do, I have a book with me that I'm going to read, which is the thing I want to do. There's one more method that James Clear mentions in this chapter, which is called habit stacking. So how habit stacking works is you stack a number of habits together. I'll just explain it to you simply in the way that I applied it into my life. So how I treated habit stacking is as a routine of habits. The first thing I do every day when I wake up is meditate and set my intention for the day. So that's right on top of my habit stack. And then I take out my laptop and plan the rest of the day into time frames, mentioning the to-do list and my priorities. That's right below meditation. And then I make my breakfast. So my breakfast routine is a habit stack itself. I make my green juice, I drink it, I eat my apple, and then I make my eggs. So a stack of its own. After that, most of the days I go to the gym, and then I continue with the rest of the day according to the plans I made. So you can see how the habit stack is created. So how this affects you positively is when you complete one habit, you're automatically forced with muscle memory to complete the next. But I should also mention that this played in a totally negative way for me a couple of days back. So one day when I woke up in the morning, I didn't do my meditation properly. Well, I didn't do my meditation at all that day. So the other habits that stacked underneath it also fell down one by one. Like a domino, if one falls, everything falls, right? That's something I'd advise you to keep in mind if you are following the habit stacking method. Well, to break a bad habit that you already have using the second law, you can use the total inverse of what we talked about, making it unattractive. So let's say for an example, you have a bad habit of using your phone too much. The first thing you gotta do is be aware of your habit and reflect on it. So maybe every day, track the time that you spend on your phone and ask yourself questions like, what could I have done in this time except for using my phone with no purpose at all? You can track most of the habits. So for a habit like using the phone, you can just use the screen time feature on your phone, which makes it way easier. I'd even suggest that you add the widget to your home screen, so every time that you pick the phone up, you can see how much time you've spent on it on the day. Something I personally use is, so let's say I was tempted to go watch Netflix or something while I was supposed to work, right? So whenever I feel like giving up work to do something like that, I always ask myself, what would the person you want to be do at a moment like this? Does it take you closer to the ideal person that you want to become? Does it take you further away? Well, to be honest, that's how I ended up writing the script as well. I started writing my script and then I was tempted to go watch Friends on Netflix. Just when I opened up Netflix, I stopped and asked myself, is this what you really want to do? And then I just went back to writing my script and got it done anyway. So yeah, to make a habit unattractive, you have to be aware of it first. Because most of our bad habits happen without even us noticing. So as long as you're aware of it and you can reflect on it and clearly think, is this what I really want? You can make it feel unattractive to you. So far, we've been over how to make the cue more obvious and the craving more attractive. to make new habits, right? So the next one that we have to talk about is the response. So in the book Atomic Habits, James Clear explains how we have to make the response easy. Making the response easy doesn't mean that we only do the easy habits. Well, that won't be that much life changing now, would it? Making it easy basically means that you reduce the friction and reduce the number of steps that it takes for you to complete the habit. Let me ask you a little question. Why do you think it's easier to binge watch a Netflix series rather than just watching one episode and hitting quit and then getting to work? Most of the time, the reason for this is because to watch the next episode of the series, you have to do very less amount of work, right? Because if you just wait a couple of seconds, Netflix just automatically load up the next episode. So you don't actually have to do anything to sit there and watch the episode, right? But now think about the other hand. If you just watch one episode of the series and you have to get back to work, you have to close the Netflix tab and you have to get up from where you were sitting down or laying down. You have to go to another room and follow so many steps if you want to get to work. So even though you know that it's a wise decision to go back to work, you just sit there because it's easier. So that's why you have to reduce the number of steps and make it easy to perform a habit. So let's say if I were to go to a gym that's so far away from my home, that's in a different route than my usual commute, there's very low chance that I will visit there frequently. But if there was a gym that's close to my home, there's a very high chance that I might actually go to it. So the solution that James Clear provided for this problem is something called the 2-minute rule. So basically, the 2-minute rule is what it says in the name. So let's say you're trying to adapt into a new habit, but it's harder to continue for a long time. The 2-minute rule explains you start with doing it for 2 minutes. So let's say the habit that you want to adapt is meditation, right? So if you've ever tried meditation, you know for a beginner, it's really hard to keep the concentration for a long time. So applying the 2-minute rule, you just have to do it for 2 minutes. I know that it won't show really huge results at first, but the more you do it, the more reps you get in, you get used to the habit. So let's say you tried the 2-minute rule to go to the gym every day for a month. So you repeated the 2-minute rule for a month. You just went to the gym, stayed in there for 2 minutes and went back. So if I'm coming here every day, I might as well work out and go back home. Once you get used to going to the gym, you'll actually get used to working out there. Exactly the same for every other habit that you want to apply into your life. So to break a bad habit, the inverse of make it easy, which is make it harder. You increase the resistance and you increase the number of steps that you want to get to the habit. You can reduce the number of times that you repeat the bad habit. For an example, I deleted the Instagram app on my phone. I have to go to the web browser. Then I have to search in Instagram. Then I have to log in. So there are a number of steps that I have to go through if I want to go and scroll through my feed. So there's so much resistance than just clicking on the app and scrolling through, because now there's all these steps that you have to follow through if you want to go to Instagram. So now that we talked about the first three, the only thing that's left is reward, right? So in the book, James Clear explains that you have to make a habit satisfying in order for you to be more likely to redo it again. So the first three, the kill, the craving, and the response, are what gets you into doing the habit. But the fourth one, the reward, is what mainly makes you redo it again, if that makes sense. James Clear says that in a perfect world, the reward for a habit would be the habit itself. But we're not living in a perfect world now, are we? For most of our habits, we have only long-term results. If you go to the gym today, you won't feel physically fit or be extremely stronger than you were today, tomorrow. Now, would you? But if you continue to do it for a couple of months, you will see a significant difference from where you started. But the thing is that the human brain isn't wired in a way that we could wait so long for the reward to come. We want an instant reward. It's pretty easy to create an instant reward. You just have to reward yourself with something that you love after doing the habit. So if your favorite YouTuber posted a new video and you wanted to watch it, you can reward yourself with it after you've completed your habit. Something that works for some people is habit tracking. Habit tracking can be done in many ways, but the most basic way is you get a calendar and you cross out every day that you do the habit. So it might get you to perform the habit every day, like you were continuing a Snapchat streak, right? So you're crossing down every day that you complete the habit, which gives you an instant reward, saying that I've completed this much days of the habit. But it's also very easy to get habit tracking wrong. So the dark side of habit tracking is we get driven and motivated by the number that we lose the actual purpose of it. I've had habit tracking play out negatively in my life. I used to track the amount of hours that I studied, except for actually concentrating on the amount of content that I covered that day. I studied for longer hours, but I got actually less work done. So, before you start habit tracking, you should clearly understand what your measuring metric is. Because if you choose the wrong metric, the purpose behind the habit loses its value. Just like we would continue to perform a habit because it's satisfying, like we talked about right now, we would resist showing up as long as the reward is unsatisfying. So that's how you break bad habits using the fourth law. Just like the delayed reward in our good habits, our bad habits have delayed consequences. So to stop this from happening, we have to make the consequence instant and painful. Let's say you were driving past the speed limit and you got a speeding ticket for that. The chances are you would probably check the speed limit the next time you go because you don't want to get fined again. Because that result was instant and painful. There are a couple of things that James Clear explains in this book to make a habit unsatisfying. They are having an accountability partner and having a habit contract. So how you can get help from an accountability partner is, if you want to stop using your phone while you're working, you can ask them to take the phone away while you're working and give it back once you're done. You can also sign a habit contract with your accountability partner. Your habit contract could look something like, if I don't go to the gym on a certain day, I wouldn't use the phone for the rest of the day. So you can ask your accountability partner to check on you if you went to the gym that day and take away the phone from you if you didn't. And if you did, you can have the phone. And James Clear also explains another fun, painful thing to do. It's making your result public. So let's say your habit is to go to the gym, but you didn't feel like, you just wanted to stay in bed. And if that happens, you have to make it public. You have to post it on social media saying, I didn't go to the gym today because I'm lazy. I didn't get out of bed and stuff like that. That makes you embarrassed and makes the result of not going to the gym instantly painful for you. So we've reached the end of the video. I'd say I rate the book a solid 9.5 out of 10 because I like it so much and it's easily applicable to my life, and I think it's easily applicable for you as well. I guess that's it for this video. Yeah, so until I come up with another video, I hope you guys try hard to improve 1% better every day, and by the next time you see me with another video, you'd probably become so much better. So I'll see you then. Take care and peace.